One of the many reasons I love RPGs as much as I do are just because of how relaxing they can be, especially the older that I get. Which is why I'm so glad we've moved past that mid-2010s phase where game devs were trying to force the idea that turn-based gameplay was going out of style. Look man, some people just like taking things slow after finishing a 12-hour shift, what can I say? Not that I'm against action RPGs or anything, the point I'm trying to make is that there's room for everything. But even then, when an RPG is especially long like Trails into Reverie, I'll need a bit of a decompression before picking up another lengthy game. That's usually when I turn to Pokemon of all things, or I decide to do another run of Hands of Fate 2. Just something short that I can get done in a week or so. But this time I found myself seeking something new, and it just so happened that the Paper Mario Thousand Year Door remaster had come out. This was a game that I've always heard good things about throughout the years. Whenever a new Paper Mario game comes out, it's usually met with negative reception, with people commenting on how it just doesn't live up to the Thousand Year Door. Even Zero Punctuation always brings this game up whenever talking about Mario in general. Admittedly, I played a lot of Mario as a kid, but since Galaxy, whenever a new game is announced, it doesn't really do anything for me. It's more to do with the fact that I just don't gravitate towards platformers anymore. I say, as I pre-order Sonic X Shadow Generations. Sonic Generations just had me in a chokehold back in 2011 man, I have no defense for this behaviour. What I'm getting at is, I'm constantly being told that this isn't just a good Mario game, it's a good RPG, and that's where you pique my interest. Entertaining my curiosity is kind of why this channel exists, so thank you for indulging me. Let's jam. What inspires a game like this to be made? I get that Mario kind of just does everything, but we already have a Mario RPG. Who looked at Mario and said, he's just not two-dimensional enough? Well, turns out, everyone at Nintendo. So Paper Mario actually began production as a sequel to Super Mario RPG, but they wanted this game to feel different, and for each subsequent game to be able to stand on its own, while introducing new mechanics. So it was through a year and a half of experimentation that the team settled on these paper-like graphics, hence coining the term Paper Mario. The idea of switching from pixel art to these paper models was done because they wanted the characters to be cuter and more expressive. And considering the more comedic angle that the Thousand Year Door goes for, it makes sense. A lot of this game's witty dialogue and comedic back and forths are sold on the visual presentation. I can't tell you the amount of times this dense animation Mario makes whenever he's confused just had me dying. And that's one of the main things that does it for me about this game. It's funny. It honestly doesn't take itself seriously at all. The characters you interact with are so snarky and a lot of them are just outright dickheads, but that's the point. Everyone only cares to serve their own interests. It's in the same vein as the OG Ratchet & Clank. And the game is very quick to set the tone. Even when you think that the story is about to take itself seriously, don't fall for it, it's a trap. There's usually a huge punchline coming. It got to the point where I was able to predict when the jokes were coming and what they were going to be. But even then, I always enjoyed the ride anyway. And as we get through the game, you'll start to see what I mean. We have 8 chapters plus the prologue, so let's go. We're greeted with this fairy tale-esque introduction which goes over a quick summary of the history of where the story is going to take place. 1000 years ago, a nameless prospering town once stood proud, but an unknown disaster wiped the town off the map. After some time, people began to gather at that spot and build a new town above it, known as Rogueport. And stories about the sunken town were passed down through the generations, and that there's a hidden treasure buried within the ruins of the old town. And thus, the great age of pirates began. Okay, that last bit was a joke, but it's a great premise, and there's enough gaps within the details to leave room for a lot of questions and mystery. The scene opens on Princess Peach at the town of Rogueport, and... is that a noose? In the center? Oh my!
There's a noose that hangs at the entrance of the city. It's a message to be read by all who encounter it. For the cautious, the sane, it's a warning. For the reckless, the wild at heart, an invitation they cannot refuse.
Peach is approached by this hooded figure who wants to sell her this box, stating that if she can open it, she can have whatever's inside, as the box will only open for those with a pure heart. Yeah right, sounds like every guy trying to talk themselves into 4th base if you ask me. And when Peach opens the box, we just see this bright flashing light. We cut to Mario and Luigi receiving a letter from Peach claiming to have received a treasure map from a merchant and that we should go and meet her at Rogueport. Now, based on what we've just seen, this letter comes across as rather ominous, as you'd assume that Peach has most likely been kidnapped. I mean, when we get to Rogueport we find out that that is the case, but she wasn't kidnapped at the time of sending this letter. This letter was actually from her. Because given the transition, I thought that this letter was a fake, just as a way to lure Mario out to Rogueport, but we won't fully understand what exactly happened here until we reach the end of the game. This is also where you'll notice that everyone talks besides Mario. He's the silent protagonist, but still manages to convey a lot through his animations. Not as expressive as, say, Wind Waker Link, but that's also part of the humour. Sometimes Mario's blank face during high intense moments is just a joke in itself. On a bit of an unrelated note, I was originally introduced to Mario through the Super Mario Bros. Cartoon, where Mario talks non-stop, so when I finally got round to playing Mario Bros. 3, which was my first Mario game, and realised that Mario doesn't actually speak, that was the most confusing thing to me as a kid. Anyway, now we're officially at the prologue. Prologue, a rogue's welcome. Mario comes to Rogueport alone as the captain of our ship tries to deter us from actually stopping there. Rogueport is our hub for the entire game and it's absolutely brimming with personality. You've got your grumpy dock workers, grizzly pirates, petty thieves, local gangs, but it's all over the top and colourful in a cartoony way, supported by a cheerful soundtrack. Less foreboding but more inclined to have fun with its unique setting for a Mario game. We spot this female Goomba being attacked by this mysterious group seeking information on something called the Crystal Stars. As we get close, she immediately runs behind us for protection. This is our first introduction to combat. However, I won't really touch on combat until the post-game stuff, since that's when I tackle the 100 trial dungeon, which is nothing but combat. But I will preface by saying combat is very fun in this game, just as much as exploring is. After defeating them, his gang dogpile us and we slip out in the chaos. The Goomba thanks us by giving us a kiss on the cheek. This is gonna be a running gag of every woman in the game kissing and having a crush on Mario, even though he says absolutely nothing. The stoic Black Pill community are punching the air right now. This is Goombella, and she actually knows who we are since at this point Mario is quite famous. She reveals that she's after the sunken treasure of Rogueport. Toadsworth stumbles into the conversation, revealing that he and the princess only stopped at Rogueport to get some fuel, and he quickly lost sight of her. At this point I get the idea of how they're trying to characterize Peach. Even though she still retains the role of damsel in distress, she's a lot more adventurous and witty in this game. She ends up getting kidnapped more as a result of her own curiosity, being a much more proactive character, and it shows a lot throughout the game. Toadsworth decides to just leave the rescue of Princess Peach to us and just goes to chill at the inn. What would you have done if I hadn't arrived? Probably would have just sent a letter, I guess. Goombella gets the idea to find the professor researching the treasure as he could shed some light on the treasure map we received from Peach. Goombella is like Navi but with an optional button. She'll only speak if you ask her for advice. There's a joke to be made about the secret to a happy marriage here, but I'm not going to be the one. But her signature character trait is the fact that she's very mouthy and has a sassy attitude, and it plays out in combat as her skill is to scan and read out enemy descriptions, including their HP, attacks and weaknesses. She's a good companion to have when encountering new enemies. On the way to the professor's place, we immediately get robbed, and I am chasing him down that alley.
What could possibly go wrong?
Once cornered, he gives us the money back. This doesn't actually lead to anything plot related, it's just more for atmosphere building and immersion. The sign here really says, pickpocketers try not to get caught. Not pickpocketers beware, but if you're gonna pickpocket, just don't get caught. That's so tongue-in-cheek. At first it annoyed me that I can't bulk buy items, but given that your inventory isn't very large, I guess it makes sense. Plus I always found myself with a surplus of resources due to what I'd find on the map anyway. I like that the shop has a reward system at least, though I hardly bought from the shop so I didn't make much use of the reward system. We find Professor Frankly... so it's not EGAD. Wait, was this before or after Luigi's Mansion? It doesn't matter, the game's doing its own thing. I love this little exchange. Frankly exposits that the 1000-year door beneath Rogueport should lead to the treasure, but we have to find and gather the crystal stars in order to unlock it. We decide to head down to Old Rogueport to find the door. This woman drops her contact lens and I'm told not to move. I do as she says, but then too much time passes so I just move anyway. This is intentional as when you move you break her contact lens and she refused to move until you replace it. She's just here to be a roadblock to the other side of town. Old Rogueport has such a nice track. There's a gang living down here and they're basically going to be our enemy fodder. We find a mysterious key followed by a mysterious chest. Upon opening the chest, we come across this spirit that curses us. The curse being that we now have the ability to turn into a paper airplane to bypass certain obstacles. That's gonna be a running gag, malevolent spirits cursing us serving as our Metroid-esque power-ups, giving us more avenues to explore, as Old Rogue Town will serve as our connecting point to several other locations, so we'll be returning here a lot. Upon reaching the door, it's fairly straightforward. 7 stars, 7 worlds. I don't know why Mario is so confused by this concept, as if he doesn't deal with this every other day. Each time you come back to this room with a new star, a new part of the map will open up, showing the location of the next crystal star, and the first one is at this place called the Petal Meadow. Returning to the professor, he tells us that Peach had actually visited him prior to her disappearance, mentioning heading towards the Petal Meadows, so that's where we're heading. Oh, so now I have the choice to toggle between the classic soundtrack or the new one. I'm gonna say, in each new area I would listen to both, and yeah, I think the old soundtrack blows the new one out of the water. I've never played this game before, so this isn't even a nostalgia thing. I just prefer them. They feel more like melodies I would hum along to as a kid and tend to fit the stages a lot more. This giant octopus is blocking our way, but we deal with him very swiftly. Let's go to chapter 1. Chapter 1, Castle and Dragon. Just out of curiosity, I hit a random tree and a star piece fell out. Star pieces are just another form of currency that you can trade with at a certain vendor in order to get some badges. Badges are... You know what, I'll save it for later. The moment I move an inch, we spot a giant dragon flying overhead. I guess that's our boss fight for the chapter. Very foreboding. Petalburg has such a nice vibe compared to Rogue Town. Even the residents are quirkier. There's this Princess Peach weeb, this one toad asks if I've ever played Fire Emblem, this French guy flirts with Goombella, this general is depressed as shit. He's probably never gonna pop up again. Upon speaking to the mayor, he reveals that the dragon we saw earlier is named Hooktail, and it has a crystal star. We also get this funny exchange where the mayor insists that he heard us say we'll happily slay the dragon with no reward. You heard damn well that's not what I said. My auntie pulls this exact same shit, you're not that old. Getting to Hooktail's castle isn't as easy as going straight there. We first need to get the sun and moonstones from the Schwunk forest to uncover a secret pipe that leads to the castle. So let's mosey. While scanning this rock enemy, Goombella mentions that bold guys don't do it for her. Apologies to all my bold viewers hoping to shoot their shot. We get further enough into the fortress and it's time for a boss fight. Oh, it's a quiz show. He even has a bow tie and everything, that's so cute. We have to answer 5 out of 8 questions correctly, but I'm not gonna lie man, I cut it so close. My short-term memory is absolutely atrocious, but I managed to get the sun and moonstone. And oh okay, here's the actual boss fight against this golden fuzzy. Upon returning, the Cooper guard mentions that now we've defeated the monsters at the fortress, he's out of the job. Well, maybe with all your newfound free time, you can finally catch up with One Piece? As we pass through, we encounter this young Cooper that insists on joining us. This is Coops. His dad went to fight Hooktail but never came back. He's a shy young man that wants to become a brave warrior. His ability is the shell toss, which we can use to reach faraway items and hit switches. He has a heartfelt goodbye with Koopy Koo. It's okay, brother. This is a journey every boy must undertake in order to become a man. She wouldn't understand. Hooktail's castle. Yeah, there's no way in hell these aren't coming to life and attacking me. My 28-year-old brain is too smart for you. My 9-year-old brain on the other hand... We find the bones of Coops' dad with a note attached talking about Hooktail's weakness being something that starts with F and ends in ROG. And in the notes, Coops realizes that this isn't actually his dad and we just play it off. This game. One of the dead bones attacks us and we find our first Shine Sprite. Shine Sprites are how we level up our party members while Mario just levels up with experience. So, all these cursed treasure chests will ironically refer to you as a legendary hero just to butter you up. But here's our next power up. The power to turn to the side. I don't know why it took me this long to start thinking about a link between worlds, but this power-up serves as a way for us to squeeze between gaps. Ooh, we find the frog sound effect badge. Hang on. Hooktail, weakness, F, rog, hooktail, weakness, F, rog. We find a thieving mouse. This is Miss Mouse. I'm not gonna lie, these names are starting to get a bit jarring. She kisses Mario and then tells us that there's a badge that will help us fight Hooktail, in case it wasn't obvious enough. Anyway, time to confront her. I used the frog badge, but I'm unsure as to what would happen if I didn't have it. I assume you either can't hurt her or you deal less damage. She tries various tricks, including offering to let us smell her feet. But since I'm recording, I'll have to decline. Upon defeating her, she spits out Koops' dad, along with the crystal star. No sign of Peach though. This is where the game jumps over to Peach being interrogated by Grodus of the X-Nauts. Getting nowhere, he locks her up and summons the three shadows to capture Mario and get the crystal stars. Here we take control of Peach as she laments to herself about how she's always getting kidnapped. It's more of a self-depreciating joke from the game. The doors mysteriously open, so we wander out. Turns out that this supercomputer, Tech, wanted to speak to Peach. The moment he laid eyes on her, he became overwhelmed with the desire to protect her and learn more about her. He doesn't know what this feeling is. Peach says that it must be love. Since he doesn't understand this emotion, he wants to know more about it. He wants to comprehend it because he must be the perfect computer that has knowledge about absolutely everything. We also get a playable Bowser segment where he finds out about Peach's kidnapping, so now he has to kidnap her back. This is going to be the running formula throughout the entire game. Visit a new world, get the crystal star, Peach segment, Bowser segment. Though Bowser segments are just for the gags. He doesn't have a huge role in this game's actual plot. Koops decides to join our party permanently for the sake of getting stronger. Hey, Coop, that picture in your house, is that Blue from Foster's? The general is still depressed. Mario receives an email on his Game Boy SP from Princess Peach giving us an update on her situation. Tech allows her to do this. It's funny because I've also been playing Persona 3 Reloaded and man, the 2000s was such an era before texting took over. Emailing was... Anyway, back to Rogueport. We now have access to a new fortune teller. He or she basically gives us random buffs during combat. We also bump into Luigi on a mission to rescue Princess Eclair from the Waffle Kingdom. This is gonna be another running gag, Luigi having his own whole adventure going on in the background, and every time we rendezvous with him, he'll have a new story to tell that's so intense, it puts everyone to sleep. And we've unlocked side quests. Time for Mario to fulfill his dream as a certified bracer. We can only accept one quest at a time though, so you can't clear a bunch in one fell swoop, which does kind of drag the whole thing out, not gonna lie. But at the same time, there aren't that many, only like 30 or so overall. There's this one quest about credit card fraud where a man wants us to check various shop prices to see if he can compete. Contact lenses have arrived at the shop, and by giving them to Zesty, we unlock the ability to upgrade our items by letting her cook them. She still has such an attitude while she does it though, my god, I'm sorry. This also means the entry to West Rogueport is open now. It's upper class. This kid complains about how his dad spends all his time writing his novel that will never sell. The dad complains that his wife is always at the casino, and yeah, here she is. The way she talks, it's like she doesn't even care. I couldn't find this bandit until I realized this wolf fucks with your perspective. This quest has us playing hide and seek at the castle with a Koopa for a casino membership card. Admittedly, I never really care for casinos in RPGs. I don't know what it is, I'm just not a gambler I guess. Plus, it seems a little mundane when there's dragons to fight, you know? We also unlock access to warp zones which will take us to previously explored areas. That's a nice touch. Our next destination is the Great Tree. We weren't able to access it before because we didn't have the paper thin power up. And we meet this Punio that requests our help. And we move on to the next chapter. A great start to the game that establishes the tone and formula for what you can expect, with great comedic moments. So far, so good. Chapter 2. The Great Boggly Tree. Oh, everything about you is just gorgeous. Just listen to that. We spot the three shadows, but because they lost the sketch of Mario, they don't recognize us, so we waltz right past them. Beldam blames Vivian for losing the illustration, thus confiscating this necklace that Vivian found. We reach the Great Tree, but there's a locked door that Punio is unfamiliar with. There's apparently a secret entrance, but we can't find it. We decide to find Madame Fleury. Since she has the power over wind, we can use her to find the secret entrance. We get to her house. She says that she'd love to help, but she refuses to come outside without her necklace, and that's so petty. It's like when someone says, oh yeah, I'd love to help you move house, it's just that it's my goldfish's birthday and I really can't leave the house, you know, I totally would, it's just, you know, my goldfish. We cut back to the shadow minions. Turns out, Beldam actually had the sketch the entire time but still blames and punishes Vivian. Typical boomer parent behaviour. Time to backtrack. When we reach the trio, they claim to have been waiting for us. Yeah, sure. They introduced themselves as the three Shadow Sisters, though they argue about the title since they didn't all agree to it.
From left to right. Sally. Lily. Ellie. Millie. Sharona.
Why didn't the last one end her name with Lee?
I don't know. Want me to go ask her?
It does sound a little bit funny.
You see, that's why we told you to change your name. You're breaking up the rhythm.
I think you four should change your name so they end in Ona.
And it's a boss fight. They each have their own element that they command. It's an entertaining boss fight to say the least, but we retrieve the necklace for Madame Fleury. And after giving Mario some sugar, she joins our party. We use her to open up the secret entrance. While Punio is opening up the door from the inside, we get some alone time with her. She tells us about how she used to be a famous actress but lost her passion for it. But it was discovering the punies and observing how pure and innocent they are, it reminded her of why she fell in love with the stage in the first place. So since they helped her reawaken her passion, she wants to help them out as much as she can, before returning to her old life. This honestly touched me. I think it's something a lot of us can relate to, in the sense of once having passion for something when you are younger until the cynicism of adulthood kicks in. Sometimes all it takes is leaving your bubble and seeing life from a different perspective. To be reminded of that innocence we all had. And not just that, but it does speak a lot to Madame Fleury as a character. She feels honor bound to help out these little guys as a thank you. I also connect with Koops too. His whole thing of not feeling worthy of Koopy-Koo until he's satisfied within himself is some relatable shit to me. So far these party members are ticking all the right boxes. It's funny how the further I got into the game, Goombella honestly just faded further and further into the background. The reason why the door was locked is because the tree has been taken over by the X-Nauts. When we enter, this big punny questions our intentions, wonder if we're with the enemy. I mean, the tree has already been taken over, so what reason would I have to trick you? A bunch of punies have already been captured, including Punio's sister. We need to rescue everyone in order for the big puni and the others to be convinced to fight back. I enjoyed this dungeon a lot. We rescue the Elder, who's just another angry boomer, but when we reunite him with the others at the entrance, he yells and berates them for being such cowards. After telling us that we can find the crystal star at the bottom of the tree, he forces the punies to join us. So here we are with our little army. Along the way, we're told that the X-Nauts only managed to take over with the help from the Jabby tribe, a separate group that the punies share the tree with. Whenever we encounter them, we engage in these large group battles. I mean, I say we, but we kind of just stand and watch. Nah, I get it, we have final boss energy. They have to fight their way to get to us, like we're Jinpachi or some shit. We save Punio's sister and watch a sweet moment where the two share a dried mushroom. We now have 101 punies at our disposal.
War and its consumption of life has become a well-oiled machine. War has changed. ID tag soldiers carry ID tagged weapons.
Aside from these large battles, we mostly use the punies as a way to solve puzzles. Lord Crump steals the crystal star and activates a bomb timer. We have a time limit to reach the top as the Elder holds Crump back as a boss fight ensues. The moment we defeat him, we cut back to Princess Peach. Peach expresses aloud that she won't be able to attend the Mushroom Kingdom ball, and Tech overhears this. Feeling this urge to dance with her, but he doesn't know why. He creates this Peach hologram to simulate the experience, and it plays out as a button bash sequence. After thanking her, he allows Peach to send Mario another email and then sends her back to her room. And here's a playable Bowser segment where we play through a traditional Mario stage, but as I alluded to earlier, it's just a joke level. He is gunning for Petalburg, big dick swinging looking for Peach. This is where the joke with the weeb comes full circle, as Bowser mistakes one of his life-size posters for the real thing. We say our goodbyes to the Punies and discover that the next crystal star is in the sky, in the floating town of Glitzville. It's basically a giant arena, but not just anybody can access it. You can only get a ticket through certain channels, meaning we need to speak with Don Pinata. And, we get an email from Kupiku. So this is an aspect of the game that I just adore. Characters that we've met through our travels and even characters we've done quests for will email you every so often with general updates about what they're up to. It's little touches like this that just make the world feel more lived in, and time is passing even when you're not around. If there's one thing I'm guilty of with most RPGs, especially with the likes of Dragon Quest XI, it's forgetting about the towns and the people that I visited in the early parts of the adventure, and if I do go back, they're just static with nothing happening. And mechanics like this email system mitigate that for me. Let's check in with Luigi. Damn, he even has his own party members now. Speaking of party members, I've only just noticed that people's responses to you will change depending on who you've currently got as your partner. Another great little touch. We speak to the Robo boss leader. If we want to see Don Pinata, we need to head to the western shop, buy a dry mushroom, and then a dizzy dial, and then answer that our favourite colour is yellow. Okay, let's try this. The clerk slips up and asks what colour our moustache is as opposed to our favourite colour, but it's just another gag. Don Pinata says he'll give us a ticket if we can locate his daughter, who has apparently eloped with one of his underlings. They aren't hard to find, they're right by the dock about to leave. We have a choice as to whether or not we tell the Don or not to protect the happy couple, but ultimately it winds up not mattering much since they show up anyway. His response to their proclamation of love is actually kind of cute, playing the whole "I can't stand to look at you both, get out of my sight this instance. You big old softy, you ain't fooling no one."
For my brothers with daughters, I call this. For my brothers with daughters, I call this.
He gives us a blimp ticket and off we go to our next adventure. I'll say this once now so that I don't have to repeat myself later. The chapters do just get better and better the more you go through the game, and I'm a sucker for underdogs pushing back against a big regime. And I'm an even bigger sucker for a good tournament arc, so let's go. Chapter 3 of Glitz and Glory. As much as I love this chapter, this is probably the shortest one given that it's the smallest area and it's mostly progressed through combat as opposed to travelling from point A to B. This hot dog picture is so adorable. Oh, we find the Toad Sisters again, and the French guys here too. So not only do characters send us regular emails, but they'll also move locations as well. Again, just so organic. We take a peek inside and see the current champion, the Rockhawk, who's a parody of exactly who you think it is, so I'm not even gonna address it. It's kind of charming here, but very jarring by the time Disgaea 5 does it. We see something resembling the crystal star on his championship belt, so we decide to sign up for the arena. Oh, and Miss Mouse is here too. What are you scheming? These conversation responses when talking to Grubber make me laugh, but in a strange sense of irony that feels deliberate. I can't explain why. We sign our contract and head over to the Game Boy. Oh yeah, time to boot up some Bob the Builder Fix-It fun. When you try speaking to Jolene the secretary, she says that she doesn't date fighters. Huh. First time Mario's been rejected. Mario, don't take no for an answer. She doesn't know what she wants. So as a Sigma male, you're supposed to tell her what she wants. The gimmick here is that we're rank 20 and we need to fight our way to rank number 1, one match at a time, with each fight having their own set of win conditions, like not using any special moves, not taking too much damage, countering at least once, etc, etc. These are all conditions for the sake of making the fight entertaining for the crowd, but you can get through these fairly quickly. We reach our promotion match to get into the top 10, but we lose due to being unable to damage these enemies. We rescue this egg from being cooked by the local chef and it hatches into a Yoshi. Aww, we get to name him! Raijin Maru. What do you mean there's not enough space? Fine, Raijin will have to do. He's able to eat and spit out these enemies and we're able to progress. Once we get into the upper tier room, the Hawk bursts in to smack talk us for a bit. It's during this exchange that we get a closer look at his belt and realize that the star is actually a fake. After he leaves, we ponder where the actual star could be, and we get a message from X, telling us to follow his instructions if we want the star, followed by another message telling us to get to a watering hole outside of the arena. Ooh, we have a poster now. His instructions lead us to finding the super hammer which we used to smash a block in the locker room, where we stumble across some dubious documents. No, that's literally what they're called. Based on what's written on the document, it's apparent that someone in the Colosseum is researching into the crystal stars for their own gain. Jolene suspiciously appears and demands we hand these documents over and that we should be getting ready for our next match. As soon as she leaves, we get a message, not from X, but from a completely different anonymous person telling us to stop poking around other people's business. This is when I start to pay attention to the gloomy music setting a creepy tone. I've been skipping over this, but in between each fight we partake in, things within the locker rooms and the arena shift around. Combatants slowly start to disappear over the course of the chapter, and it all began years ago with the disappearance of the original champion, Mush, along with King K. Then there's these creepy messages that we're receiving. Something sinister is happening in the background, but we aren't sure what. And it's as I start to ponder and appreciate the tense atmosphere that Bowser jumps in declaring a 1v1. He kind of just disappears after this for the rest of the chapter, never to be mentioned again. Bruh, are you good? After a few more matches, X tells us to go to the telephone booth where he's left a key for the storage room. We enter and find Miss Mouse because of course you were only here to rob the place. Koops reveals that he has a little crush on her. We've all been there, Koops. Nothing like wanting a woman you can't have. One day, my love. One day. There's nothing specifically in the storage room that we want. What we're after is access to the ventilation system which hangs over the promoter's office. While here, we overhear Jolene questioning Grubba about the disappearances while he plays ignorant. Once we exit, we receive another anonymous message telling us to back off or we may go missing like the others. In the locker room, a fan allegedly sends us some cake. This happened once before and we had some, but this time it's giving me bad vibes, so I'm gonna ignore it. After our next fight, we return to see that one of the combatants ate the cake and was left paralyzed. I told you before, game, I've got too much big brain energy for you. X contacts us again telling us to remove our poster from the lobby. Y'all just want to build me up just to tear me down, man. Oh, there's actually something here. Holy shit, it's King K and Bandy Andy. This actually made me jump when I first saw it. Like, are they legit dead? I think that's what this means. Holy crap. As we turn, we see that Jolene has been following us but dashes away. And now we're just meant to go and fight in the championship match like nothing happened. The steward arrives to pick us up like usual to take us to our fights with The Rock, but ends up locking us in this room, making it seem like we're forfeiting the match. We escape through this toilet and end up back in the old locker room. This toilet has always been a fixture here, but we can never access it due to it always being in use. It would have been a funny gag if as we're passing through, we interrupted whoever was using it. I'm sorry, I didn't mean for that to come across so scatty, but what I'm trying to get at is how much I love how this game's world is designed. Everything just always comes full circle. There's always a setup and payoff with every piece of the world being designed with intent. We reach the stadium just before we're disqualified. The Rock confesses he was the one that sent us the poison cake and had us locked up. That was all for the sake of keeping his title, but he's completely oblivious to everything else. Whatever conspiracy we're dealing with has nothing to do with him. He's an okay boss fight, nothing especially major. It's revealed that Grubba was the villain all along. He's been building a machine powered by a crystal star, and the reason fighters have been going missing is because they accidentally stumbled onto it. King K and the others aren't actually dead, but they've just had their energy drained as fuel for the machine. That's so weak. But he'd been the one sending us those messages, so time for another boss fight. Jolene is revealed to be X. Her brother was the original champion Mush, but went missing. so she became Grubber's secretary in order to look into it. Love it. The crystal star brings Mush back to life. What do I have to do to see a death in this game? Yeah, it's a happy ending or whatever. You take over, Peach. Tech wants Peach to disguise as an X-Naut and asks Rodus why they're keeping Peach hostage. Peach finds out that they plan on using the crystal stars to conquer the world. When she returns, Tech asks Peach if she likes the world she lives in, even though it's imperfect. Peach's answer is basically, the world isn't perfect, but you have to focus on the positives more than the negatives. Yeah, must be easy for a princess to say, huh? Yeah, I know, it's all about living life with the right attitude. She's pure of heart, I hate the rich, leave me alone. We also get Bowser interacting with the Punies. Oh, and King K is fine now too. Let's check back in with Luigi. He embellishes himself a lot in his latest story, with his new party member telling a completely different version of what actually happened. He's literally only sticking around to make sure Luigi doesn't get himself killed. The professor has an update in his research claiming that it was the treasure itself that caused the old city to be destroyed years ago. Next stop, Twilight Town. Oh, I'm not ready to relive that trauma. The pipe to Twilight Town rejects us, so we need to speak to Darkly since he's from there. Ah, an email from Koopy Koo. Oh, and Pine Tea. Jolene is the fight promoter now. You go, girl. We couldn't get down the pipe because we needed our names written down on our clothing. Okay, on to chapter 4. Chapter 4. For pigs, the bell tolls. The moment we arrive, someone comes over to greet us, but then as the bell tolls, he transforms into a pig. Beyond the village is a place called Creepy Steeple. A creature residing there has placed a curse on the townsfolk, dictating that whenever the bell rings, a random person turns into a pig. So the people live in constant fear, as each person never knows when they're going to be next. That's so horrifying. Wait, but why doesn't everyone just leave? With how depressing everything is, I have to wonder. Or is it that the curse follows you wherever you go? Do you have to hear the bell? Do people not have stationery to write their names down? It's a great premise, but my immersion is broken due to the warp pipe being literally in everyone's eyeshot. I mean, Darkly got to Rogueport okay, so what is actually stopping everyone? Okay, I won't hop on this for too long. We give this starving woman food only for her to turn into a pig straight afterwards. Oh my god, the kid's reaction is so depressing. Talk about a tonal whiplash, even the music is dry and foreboding. Okay, here's my comic relief, with this woman and her husband where she rambles on and on about this depressing situation, putting Mario and the others to sleep. Let's head over to the Creepy Steeple to investigate what's going on. Oh, we need the mayor's permission to pass through the gate, okay. Oh, he gets turned into a pig, so how can... Oh, okay, the guard does too. Okay, great. Ooh, we've unlocked a new curse. It's the SpongeBob roll. We find the storage key to that woman's shop and she has some seriously good items. At the steeple we're greeted by these ghosts and oh, they are dickheads. They'll chuck you outside if they get a hold of you. We reach the top and get into a boss fight with this huge ghost-like wizard that's responsible for the curse. Halfway through the fight he absorbs and becomes Shadow Mario, but we manage to win and get the star. Chapter's over already. Alright, that was fast. Probably the shortest one, but okay. Oh, hang on, we have a cutscene. Hello? Why are we just lingering on this screen? Alright, maybe I have to tap the A button and... Oh! We're Shadow Mario now. Okay, let's see where this goes. I'm imagining all the kids playing this back in the early 2000s and how this fake out must have blown their minds, because it sure as hell worked on me. Okay game, you got me this time. When we get partways back to the village, we're confronted by the wizard that stole our body. The only way we can actually get our body back is if we guess his name. The P's missing. So yeah, this is actually a really clever workaround by the game devs, so that even if you wanted to Google his name, which is Dupliss, you can't even type it in anyway because there's no lowercase p on the input screen. Very nice touch. During the encounter, he'll continuously prompt you not to run away. Don't tell me what to do. We beeline back to town to find that everyone's back to normal as the curse has been lifted, but nobody actually recognizes us as Mario. We even find our party members and Body Snatcher eating with the mayor, but they do mention how Mario is acting a little different. Oh, it's the Toad Sisters again. The French guy too. French guy? Are you stalking the... Okay, never mind. The Shadow Trio is also here, and Beldum is abusing Vivian again about losing a bomb, even though it's quite clear that Beldum was the one who lost it. Vivian will be the one to get punished if she doesn't find it. Feeling empathy for her, we help Vivian look, and in exchange, she decides to help us with our Body Snatcher problem. I love this following segment. The logic is that animals can speak the human language when they think humans aren't around. Let's be honest, we all secretly believe it. So we use Vivian's power to hide in the shadows and eavesdrop on the crows' conversations, and they wax so philosophical. Their conversations remind me of that one gag in Duckman where the twins have the most nonsensical intellectual debates ever.
No way! Muhammad would definitely beat Moses at celebrity word scramble.
Would not! Moses wrote the Torah! It has over 50,000 words!
So what? They're all in Hebrew. Those words still look scrambled.
Moses!
Muhammad!
Moses!
One of the crows lets out that someone at the steeple knows the name of our Body Snatcher, so time to head back. There's a lot of backtracking in this chapter, but I guess it can't be helped given that it's not very large. We find the missing P in the treasure chest, and we find his pet that reveals his name to be Dupless. We return back to town to confront him and... damn, we have to fight our party members now. This is breaking my heart. When Vivian finds out that we're actually Mario, she runs away as she can't be seen helping the enemy. But she comes back because we were actually kind to her as opposed to her companions, so she joins our party permanently after we get our body back. All's well that ends well. Over to Peach. Tech indirectly tells Peach the X-Naut's plans about how they're trying to use the crystal stars to unseal a demon beneath Rogueport. We get a Bowser swimming section. He looks so cute with his little dog paddle and his tiny arms. The mayor says, please come back to visit sometime, and I don't think so. Especially when he asks if they upset Mario by not recognizing him, and when we respond that yes, we were upset, he just says, well, it's good to be in touch with your emotions. You bellend, I'm never coming back here, fuck your side quests. Before the professor gives us our next piece of exposition, he breaks the fourth wall and turns to the player to make sure we're paying attention. Yep, I'm listening. A millennia ago, the demon reigned supreme and created the crystal stars to increase its influence. 4 heroes appeared and stole the stars, opening up the chance to destroy its body, but they couldn't destroy its spirit, so they used the stars to seal it away. The seal weakens every millennium, so we have to gather the stars to redo the seal. If you're interested on more lore as to who the heroes were and what their journey was like, you can speak to this rooftop bandit that can fill you in, an optional codex if you will. Luigi has a new party member now, but he's only following him because Luigi owes him money. Yeah, the first season of Pokemon had something similar, but then Ash and Misty became lifelong friends, and I'm sure you guys will too. Miss Mouse is chilling in Rogueport and she wants us to find a particular badge hidden at Hooktail's lair. Once we find it, she joins our party. I love it when games store admissible party members. I'm dead serious. Maybe not as cryptic as the likes of Vincent from Final Fantasy VII, but you know what I mean. We find a cookbook for Zesty, so we unlock item fusion. I never made much use of it. Our next star location is out at sea. We convince Flavio, or at least he convinces himself to let us use his ship to find the next star. He comes along and rounds up a crew made up of the locals, including this little toad who wants to find his brother, and... Is that an X-Naut on our crew? Oh, and the merchant is with us too. The final crewmate we need is a navigator, so we need to find Admiral Bobbery. The barkeep tells us his story of how Bobbery's wife died of illness while he was out at sea, and gives us her final letter. I actually welled up a bit as Bobbery read it, but this is all the motivation he needs to live life to the fullest and get back out to sea. We get a message from Punyo before we go. As we leave, we see an X-Naut on the radio communicating with someone. Oh, I wonder who it could be. This chapter was honestly saved by Dupless. What a great villain and what a great section. On to chapter 5. Chapter 5, The Key to Pirates.
Here's how the story goes. We find out about a treasure in the Grand Line. there's no doubt. The pirate whose eye is on it, he'll sing, I'll be king of the pirates, I'm gonna be king.
Oh yeah, this one's probably copyrighted, so I guess we'll settle for Flavio singing instead. We're suddenly swarmed by these will-o-wisps and end up shipwrecked on this deserted island. Some people from our party are missing, so everyone nominates Naruto to— fucking hell. Everyone nominates Mario to be captain, making it his responsibility to find the others. You're seriously going to charge me money to rest here? You don't even own this land. And look at her with that smile on her face like, yeah, capitalism starts with me, bitch. We find the Admiral, Toad, and the Not X-Naut. Not X-Naut. Not X-Naut. Not X-Naut. X's and O's. Noughts and crosses. How did I only just catch that? They're being attacked. The Admiral stays behind to ensure that the others can escape. I don't know. Personally, I think we could have taken them, but okay. Once we make it back to camp, the Not X-Naut threatens the player not to tell Mario that he's secretly an X-Naut. I honestly think that the only reason we had the fourth wall break earlier was so that this one wouldn't feel so out of place, because I'm pretty sure this is the only other time that this happens. We go back to check on the Admiral to find him dying. His last request is for us to bring him his favourite beverage, a Chocola Cola. That sounds disgusting. Turns out Flavio has one, but he demands we bring him something to trade for it. You fucking asshole! The guy is dying, what's wrong with you? This is the sort of person that would show up to a distant relative's funeral only to see what they're entitled to in the will. I hate you. And it's not like he'll just accept any old thing either. It has to be something native to this island, you pompous, narcissistic, sociopathic. Why don't we just jump this guy? Even when we bring him local fruit, he has the audacity to say, "Give my regards to the Admiral." The Admiral enjoys his Chocola Cola and closes his eyes. And he's not even dead, he's just sleeping. I'm so pissed off that I didn't see this coming, given the tone and Flavio's behaviour. I was so pissed off that I couldn't help but just laugh. He even joins our party. Now that everyone's gathered back at camp, we plan out our next move. We figure our best bet is to pursue the Crystal Star. The Admiral mentions that he spotted a rock with a skull shaped carved into it, so we deduce we'll be needing Flavio's skull artifact that he's always carrying around. Since everyone's kind of sick of his obnoxious behaviour and wants to get rid of him, they all insist that he comes along with the exhibition crew. We use his skull gem on the door, but that isn't enough. We need to utilise these small pillars somehow. Lucky enough, there are clues sprinkled into the song that Flavio was singing on the boat earlier. Again, the setup and payoff in this game. In we go. Shit, it's Bullet Ben! Have you ever had to fight a cannon? This cursed chest we find just skips the song and dance because of how used to it we are. I feel kind of bad for ruining his fun. We rescue a bunch of shipwrecked toads along with Don Piñata's daughter. We find the ship belonging to the long dead Captain Cortez, and his spirit lives on inside this ship as a giant skull. All the will-o-wisps that attacked us earlier are all the dead souls of his crew. His spirit guards this large assortment of treasure along with the Crystal Star, so here's our boss fight. I died for the first time in this game. Actually, now that I think about it, it's the only time. Oh, I also died in the post-game boss, but we'll get there. I was blindsided by the fact that he has multiple phases, honestly. Anyway, we win, but we can't actually kill him since he's already dead, so there's this awkward melodramatic now what? But as it turns out, he doesn't actually care for the star in particular, so he just gives it to us so long as he keeps the rest of the treasure. In most games, I'd be a little annoyed that we had to deal with a boss fight for that, but nah, with this game, again, it's just in tone and got a chuckle out of me. Oh, and Toad found his brother. As we tried to leave, we're attacked by the X-Nauts firing from their ship. Since we have no working ship of our own, we're kind of screwed until Flavio decides to convince Cortez to use his cursed ship to fight back. Yeah, fine Flavio, you pulled your weight. This scene is kinda cool. We get our final fight of the chapter against the X-Naut group. Let's see what the princess is up to. Tech wants Peach to sneak into Grodus' room and steal data that he can't access. We have a puzzle section where we need to combine the right ingredients to make an invisibility potion. We'll find out what this data is later on. We get a scene in Twilight Town with Bowser fighting against the X-Nauts. Some of our characters decide to stay behind on the island, turning it into a resort. Throughout the chapter, we've been getting these short narrations from an unknown source. As we're leaving the island, it's revealed that these are all Flavio's journal entries, with him signing off the final one. This little plot element really was the icing on the cake for this chapter. This island voyage full of strong personalities, sunken treasures, pirate curses and mysteries really has me saying, yeah, Flavio's still a dickhead, but you know what? He's our dickhead. Even when you see him back at the tavern, he's still his obnoxious old self, but he's developed a sense of adventure instead of his riches, and at least that's something. I think that the game definitely peaks here, with the following chapters not necessarily declining in quality, but not quite matching up to this one. Let's check in with Luigi. His party member is actually nice to him, this time ironically. Ooh, we can readjust our stats now, and the old town underneath has been refreshed with some new enemies. The next star is at a place called Poshley Heights, which is like Beverly Hills, I guess. Let's speak to Don Pinata to get a train ride. Oh, we've unlocked second ranks for our party members. Some of the side quests this time do catch my eye. The woman with 4 kids at Twilight Town tells us how she used to have an intimate relationship with the barkeeper from Rogueport before she got married. She likes her life the way it is, but she just wants to reach out to him to see if there's any lingering feelings. But when we speak to him, he simply relays the message that she needs to forget about him and move on. She accepts his answer and says thank you. Although, if you return to the bar, it's strongly implied that the barkeeper only said this for both of their sakes, and he still does kind of hold a candle for her, but he's in better spirits. This is a bit of a common thing throughout the game, characters from one town having history with characters in other towns. Again, it's just another element that makes this game's world feel lived in. When we reach Don Pinata's office, it turns out that he's sick and wants to see his daughter. We find the couple at the new resort, but it turns out she's lost her wedding ring. Frankie tries to calm her down by saying the ring doesn't matter, but this offends her and we need to watch him apologize 100 times. This isn't a joke, and you know what? Because I'm so petty, I had to sit here and mash the button 100 times, and now I'm going to force you to watch. Don't even think about fast forwarding or skipping ahead. Oh no, if you did. Okay, I'm joking, I would never actually do that to you. I love you. We find her ring and we all head back to Don Pinata. He decides to retire, and so Frankie takes over and gives us our train ticket to Poshley Heights. But Beldam overhears this and decides to head to Poshley Heights herself. Chapter 6, 3 Days of Excess. Okay, this train though, I'm seeing what you're doing. It's giving Murder on the Orient Express vibes. Okay, Paper Mario, I'll let you land. Let's see what you do here. We receive a note telling us to get off the train. Yeah, would have been spooky if you hadn't stolen that gimmick from 2 chapters ago. Grubber, is that you? The format of this chapter is that we'll be on this train for 3 days, with each day bringing us a new crop of mysteries, and we'll also familiarise ourselves with our fellow passengers. Though some you'll be quite familiar with since you've bumped into them over your travels. First, the case of the pot of supper stew. Here we're introduced to Pennington. Pennington the detective. The next dog I get is having that name, I don't care. After Raijin Maru, there will be Pennington. Though the joke with him is that he's actually a terrible detective. He just accuses everyone randomly. He's like that guy from the Pink Panther movie.
You are under arrest for the murder of Pierre Fouquet.
We follow the trail and it leads to the overweight toad. After solving that mystery, we rendezvous with Pennington and he reveals that he knows about the note we received, along with who we actually are. Just as I start to think that maybe he's secretly brilliant and that the way he was behaving earlier was all a ruse, Pennington mistakes us as the famous Luigi. I'm ashamed to say that made me smirk. He suspects that the family of Bombos are responsible. When we head over to their cabin, the parents are arguing about what to get their little one for his birthday. When we speak to him, it turns out that all he wants is an autograph from the train engineer. And that's just so wholesome. And who would have thought that by simply speaking to your child, you would have the solution? As we're exploring, we notice that some of the passengers seem to be losing their jewelry.
I lost something once. I lost something I couldn't live without. My identity.
We head over to the conductor and it turns out that he's a blanket short, meaning someone snuck into the train without a ticket. The stowaway ends up being this ghost toad. He died in that cabin and his spirit is lingering here because he wants his diary from his luggage. When we return his diary to him, he's about to pass on. He's not gonna pass on, he's not gonna pass on, he's not gonna pass on. I fucking called it. See, game? I'm learning. He decides to stick around just because he's gotten used to life as a spirit. A thief has stolen this rat's nitro honey syrup. If mixed with the stolen jewelry, it could create an explosion. We search everyone's rooms. This character here is named Ziptoad and he's a famous actor. We find a business contract in his room, only for us to find out this wasn't really Ziptoad, but Dupliss, who's now joined forces with Beldam taking Vivian's place in the trio. Beldam has raised the drawbridge so that the train can't move, so we need to traverse through the station to reach the controls underneath, and let me tell you, this was a mission and a half. Oh cool, we get an email from King K and man, these are the type of pictures my uncles send to the family group chat whenever they go back to Africa. We escape this large group of smorgs only for them to follow us and overrun the train. This is giving me a strange sense of trypophobia. After dealing with them, we finally arrive at Pushley Heights. Why is there a chomp in the pool? Is this the equivalent of when Arab guys have pet lions and shit? Plot twist. Pennington is actually the Sanctum manager that's keeping the Crystal Star safe. And I felt like such a smart ass when I called out the Toad Spirit not leaving, and then the game just does this. Pulls out another punchline that I honestly should have seen coming. You couldn't just let me have this one, could you? Beldam and the others beat us to the Crystal Star, but it was actually a decoy with the real one being hidden somewhere. Pennington isn't allowed to tell us, but it will be our final mystery to solve as a detective. You don't actually know, do you? I fucking knew it. I fucking called it. Yes, that's 2-1 game. And that's the chapter done. Tech tells Peach to escape and reveals that she's being held on the moon while revealing the X-Naut's plans. Although, Lord Grodus catches him in the act and deletes him. Over at the Colosseum, Bowser tries to steal the star belt from Rock, and I say he tries, but it's more like a curb stomp. Back to Mario, we get our final power-up, and Tutorial Toad is actually upset that we don't need her anymore and she won't be appearing. It's actually kind of sad. All that's left for us to do now is to get the final Crystal Star, which is at the X-Naut's base on the moon. In order to get there, we need to access the far outpost and use their cannon. But first, Frankie lost his wedding ring. Okay guys, get your shit together. What kind of a sham marriage is this? This Koopa starts complaining about the fact that he has so much money that he doesn't even know what to do with himself anymore.
Sound like one of them girl problems.
Then says that I don't look rich, so I can't possibly relate to his problems. At the beginning of the game, we meet this rat that we can give money to invest into his business. Once we give him about 300 coins, he'll disappear from the game for a while. I genuinely thought that I got ripped off, but he actually returns claiming to have struck oil and gives us 999 coins. See, that's what this is all about. I think the next time I go outside, I'll give my local crackhead £300 and see what happens. The barkeep also seems to be in a much happier mood now as opposed to his stoic and objective tone before, most likely down to the side quest we did earlier. I've only just noticed that back at the giant tree, the secret entrance is now signposted with giant neon lights. Like I said before, this chapter was great, just not on par with what came before. I think I just got a little bored of running up and down the train, and this mystery-esque gimmick was already played out in chapter 3, though I can appreciate a good homage. 2 chapters to go. Chapter 7, Mario Shoots the Moon. I love how on the nose this title is. Welcome to the Far Outpost, where our women are as cold-hearted as the snow. When we ask around about the cannon, everyone acts oblivious, even though there's a statue of one right in the town square.
There's no war in Ba Sing Se.
Not as creepy as that though. We use the Admiral to negotiate with the mayor since he's one of them. The cannon has been shut down. In order to reactivate it, we need to speak to both Goldbob and General White, 2 characters that we've already met. Goldbob became so rich that he stopped caring and stopped funding the thing, which resulted in General White getting depressed over being made redundant, so he took the key and ran. Finding General White is a goose chase and a half. You've been stood in this one spot the entire game. Now all of a sudden you want to grow legs. We have to jump to every location with a character saying, "Oh yeah, he was just here, I think he said something about heading over to X." Rinse and repeat, only for him to turn up at the far outpost anyway. And on top of that, we have to mash the A button to wake him up. And yes, I'm going to make you watch. This one wasn't as bad as Frankie's apology, believe me. We go to Poshley and find Goldbob right where we left him at the end of chapter 6. We give him all of our money to show him how serious we are about reactivating the cannon. He gives it back though. We made it to the moon. We can jump higher. It doesn't really do anything, it's just a nice little bit of minutia. The moon base has a lot of electrified floor puzzles and we unlock a teleporter straight to Rogue Town. Cool. Sorry, I'm hiding in the locker because... You know in Metal Gear Solid, if you wait long enough, Snake starts to... Never mind. There's another trivia quiz boss fight. There's also this random section where we become classic Mario. Is this a reference that I'm missing about getting wet and shrinking? Okay. Getting that last keycard was jarring. I kept thinking that I had to deactivate power somewhere. I didn't realize that I was meant to just figure this out through trial and error. Here we are, mano a mano with Crump. He reveals that Peach has already been taken away. After dealing with him, we reach Tech, who uses his last bit of power to tell us that Peach is at the Palace of Shadows, before officially dying. Sayonara, Tech, the AI. I really wanted to be upset here, but then this email from Ghost Toad straight afterwards gave me serious mood whiplash. Jokes aside, for a Mario game, Tech was a pretty compelling character. I do kind of wish that he hadn't started off falling in love with Peach from the moment that he saw her, but more of a gradual thing. Like he could have started off cold and dismissive, but Peach would teach him about the value of compassion and kindness, and he'd fall in love with her over time. Kind of similar to Gamma and Amy from Sonic Adventure, because honestly some of these scenes could have been replaced, borderline redundant since they're mostly used as a way for Peach to understand the X-Nauts' plan, but as the player, we already have the professor for that. Peach uncovering their plans doesn't really do much besides give her some agency of being more than just a kidnapped princess. But like I said, we could have reworked those scenes to give the two more solid character arcs. Maybe I am asking for a lot considering the target demographic, maybe I've got too much Sonic Adventure on the brain. Gamma's storyline just stuck with me a lot as a kid. Artificial intelligence learning about abstract concepts is just such a juicy idea. It's my sci-fi brain running wild and forgive me. Let's wrap up some side quests. We need to visit every village elder to get them to sign this routing slip. I love the sense of community they all have. Toadie wants to meet Luigi. He's right there, can I not just ask him to... No, we're meant to use the Luigi costume. But then Luigi actually appears with Toadie calling him an imposter. This actually got a chuckle out of me. Alright, let's move on to the finale. Chapter 8, The 1000-Year Door. Time to open up ye old door and enter the Palace of Shadows. I love this dungeon. It's just long enough with the right amount of puzzles, having to utilize every skill and party member we've acquired in various ways. It's everything that a final dungeon should be. Even Hooktail's older brother's here. So when we opened up the door, we basically led Beldam and the others here, and now we have a gauntlet of boss fights. One against Dupliss, one against Grodus. Oh, and the soundtrack is a banger, I should add. Grodus tries holding Peach hostage, but Bowser shows up and just wrecks him. Then we have a boss fight with Bowser. During the fight with Bowser, Grodus kidnapped Peach and placed her on the altar, giving way for the Shadow Queen to rise. Grodus thought that she would obey him, but she just obliterates him. Beldam was the orchestrator behind the scenes the entire time. She was the one that approached Peach with the chest at the start of the game. The chest does only open for those with a pure heart, as they're the only ones that are worthy vassals for the Shadow Queen. So the chest gives the opener the map so that they can gather the crystal stars themselves and end up as a sacrifice. Though Beldam was just going to kidnap Peach and gather the stars herself. Though she was unable to kidnap Peach at that instant because there were so many people around, so she waited until Peach got to the meadows. But prior to Peach getting there, she had already sent Mario the letter. The Shadow Queen asks if we'd become her servant. We defy her, leading to a boss fight. We can't actually win this fight, but the crystal stars spread to all areas and people cheer for Mario, powering us up and sealing the Shadow Queen away for another millennia. Yeah, that's just the future generation's problem now. Put it up there with global warming. We also do find some treasure, and all's well that ends well. Is that a picture frame from the first Paper Mario? Can someone tell me? We never do actually find out what the treasure is. Gumbella sends us an email telling us what everyone's up to now, with Peach coming in claiming that she found another treasure map. And the ending credits are adorable as hell. Damn, I'm smiling from ear to ear. What a fun time I had with this game. And, oh, okay, technically we're not done yet. Time for the Cave of 100 Trials. This is a reverse tower with 100 floors we need to fight through. Game of death on steroids. But this is where I'll also talk about how much fun I had with the combat. People that enjoyed South Park's Stick of Truth should get some mileage out of this engine. It's turn-based but interactive. Mario has two types of attacks, jumping and hammer. Some enemies are immune to different attacks. For instance, if an enemy is flying, you'll have to jump up to it as your hammer won't reach. Some enemies may have spikes on their heads so you can't jump on them, etc, etc. But some enemies may need a combination of the two attacks in order to properly damage them. Each attack will have a button press minigame you'll have to hit in order to do extra damage, and vice versa. If you press the A button as an enemy strikes you, you'll block and reduce damage. If you press B, you'll counter attack, though the timing is a lot smaller than if you were to block. Each combat encounter takes place on this stage as an audience watches. Pulling off various complex maneuvers and combos will appease the audience, increasing this meter, which will allow you to pull off various special moves, such as healing or widespread attacks. Sometimes the audience will chime in and throw you items or throw hazards on stage depending on who's actually in the crowd. Stage hazards are also something you need to keep your eye on, as they can not only damage you, but cause various status effects, and enemies can also use items too. This is all starting to sound a bit chaotic, isn't it, with all these different variables to keep track of, but to tell you the truth, it's a lot of fun. Combat is never static. On top of all that, let's talk about badges. What I consider to be the cornerstone of the game. Badges are kind of like materia from Final Fantasy VII. They have a large variety of effects that can completely alter your playstyle, from giving you various different attacks, boosting your stats. Some only activate under certain conditions, like if your HP reaches below a certain point, it'll double your defense, or attack, up to you. You have a limited amount of badge points that you can increase as you level up. There's so much customizability with these. You even have badges that double the damage Mario receives. This game caters to different runs from what I've seen online, along with doing a no badge run, or people who do an only badge run without increasing their HP or FP. FP, flower points, is what you use for your skill attacks. I found myself equipping badges that reduce the amount of flower points my skills cost, along with passively replenishing them. Just for Mario though, I found myself switching between party members a lot if their health or flower points were running low. I've said this before, but I'm usually the type of player that doesn't really pick favourites when it comes to my party members. I have more fun experimenting with everyone, and in the case of Paper Mario, they all had their uses. Gumbella's skill that lets Mario take 2 turns, Koops' shell toss, Madame Fleury's wind attacks could make short work of groups, along with her ability to make Mario hard to hit. Same with the Admiral, he's a menace with widespread attacks. Raijun Maru was perfect for dealing with high defense enemies. Vivian's hide skill came in clutch during boss encounters. Miss Mouse could easily pierce enemies' defenses and heal. You've got a pretty flexible party here ready to deal with any encounter, except for the exhibition fight with Prince Mush. He just demolished me. I'm gonna be real, I didn't care enough to try again. I'm usually not the type of person who goes after super bosses because that's just grinding time I don't have, and I'm satisfied enough. I did finish the Cave of 100 Trials though. There's a giant boss at the bottom, Bonetail. How many of you are there? You receive the return postage badge, which has enemies receive half of whatever damage they do to you. I probably should equip this and go back and fight Prince Mush, but I just don't want to. At this point, I want to move on. If anything, Mario and Luigi Brothership seems to be quite similar. I'm aware that in terms of Paper Mario and the Mario and Luigi series, there's some overlap in terms of formula and ideas, so it does have me interested in checking it out. Has this game reignited that long lost interest in Mario for me? Perhaps. I could recommend this game to both Mario fans and RPG enthusiasts if you're just looking for a good time. With that being said, thanks for tuning in, stay safe, and remember, it's good to be in touch with your emotions, I guess.